Hey peers, we're on to our next vocab. We are now on your packet for part 2, which is commercial growth and trade routes in the post-classical era. All right, our first word is luxury goods. In the post-classical era, luxury goods came back for trade. So luxury goods are basically goods that you don't need, but people want and can sell for a lot of money. It's kind of a sign of wealth when you can trade luxury goods. This happened both in the classical and the post-classical era. Luxury goods that were traded on the Silk Road, Indian Ocean trade route, Trans-Saharan trade network include silver plates, porcelain vases, silk clothing, spices to enhance food. These things were a sign that you were basically rich and civil, and that's why people wanted them. That's why they were significant. People would trade them because they're worth a lot of money. Another big one is porcelain, which were for plates, and that's some of the porcelain that we exist here. People wanted them because they were worth a lot. Well, damn, porcelain's our next word, so let's take a look at that one. Porcelain is basically a higher quality of basically dishes, plates that could be traded. We see them here. Porcelain are an example of luxury goods that existed on the Silk Road trade route. And we're going to get right into our next word, which is silk. Silk is another, the most coveted, the most wanted luxury good at this time. It could be used as currency or as money during this time. Basically, silk was very important during the Han Dynasty. It's still important during the Sui Dynasty and the Tang Dynasty. It is the product to be traded. It is made by silkworms. It is a whole big production. There we see the silkworms, or really caterpillars. And this is how silk gets made and the finished product. And this good is worth tons of money, and it's very significant because it causes a lot of trade to happen in this, both the classical and post-classical era. China had silk as their luxury good. India and Southeast Asia have spices as their luxury good. You could almost call the Indian Ocean trade route a spice trade route. Now in India, saffron, which is a spice, and black pepper, which is a spice, were extremely valuable. In fact, you look here, and saffron, actually in its weight, was more valuable than silk, which is a pretty big deal. And black pepper, people discovered that it tastes good to have spices. It preserves your food so it lasts longer as well. They didn't have refrigerators back then, so pepper and spices would preserve food to make it last longer and make it taste better. So it's kind of a luxury good, kind of a necessity to keep food going and let people live longer because they could preserve it. So saffron, black pepper, examples of spices as a good that was traded in India on the Indian Ocean trade route. Here we see caravan, and basically caravan travel means that you travel like in a long line together. We see a lot of camel caravans because those were very popular both on the Silk Road and the Trans-Saharan trade network. Caravan routes were established on the Silk Road, were established in the Trans-Saharan trade network. People would travel together so thieves couldn't get them, so they could defend themselves, and also so they could carry more goods back and forth. During the post-classical era, the Mongols were very good about protecting these caravans because they realized they didn't get a lot of money from trade going back and forth. So caravan routes were good they were significant because they were good for safety. They were significant because of the goods they traded, but also because people were going in caravans back and forth. They also brought a lot of cultural diffusion. Most people didn't travel the entire road like the Silk Road. What they would do instead is they would stop on, let's say, major Silk Road cities along the way. So you would go from like one city to the next, not all the way along the trade route one end to the other. So you might be someone who would go from, let's say, Xi'an to Lhasa back and forth over and over again, or Xiangnu to Xi'an over and over again, and you would bring goods back and forth. And that's how the trade was done on the Silk Road and also on the Trans-Saharan trade network. Caravanserai were basically like the hotels that existed at this time. They were a place where travelers could go, where they can get food, they could talk to each other, and the expansion of luxury goods, caravanserai, spread very much, especially on the Silk Road. People would talk to each other, languages would be exchanged, culture would be exchanged, religion would be exchanged too. So lots of cultural diffusion and exchange of products and goods happened at caravanserais all over the Silk Road. One of the most important things that you need to know on the AP exam is the camel saddle. I'm not making that up. You do really need to know. It's extremely important. Before the camel saddle, camels were kind of useless because you couldn't really ride them very easily, and you couldn't put a lot of goods on them because of their humps. So eventually they were able to develop camel saddles, which could allow a single camel, and it says here in the reading up there, to carry 500 to 1,000 pounds of goods. So what would happen is people would load up their camels with all kinds of goods. We see there a caravan, and they would walk next to the camels and allow the camels to take the burden of all these goods they were carrying back and forth. This greatly increased the volume of trade, which made it much more profitable, and it means that there will be much, much more trade, cultural diffusion that will go on, and this happens because the camel saddle makes this possible. Don't underestimate this. The camel saddle is a very big deal. It expands trade, religion, cultural diffusion because of a saddle. Okay, I'm getting a little too close there. That's getting creepy. And I'll back it up. Let's go to our next word. All right, we're going to go through some of these next words together, so get ready to write. All right, I'm ready. Okay, so credit and economic exchange. Basically, people didn't want to carry large amounts of gold or any kind of money in case they got robbed. So they wanted to find a safe way to make large payments. And we can see there in the reading they call it flying money. Flying money. Anyway, so they call it flying money. Basically, what this is credit and economic exchange means that you don't have to have the money. It's kind of like that credit card that some of your parents have that people use to when they want to buy things without having the cash with them. The money's safe somewhere else. So credit and economic exchange means they're able to trade without having the money with them so they can't get robbed. And they make these things called bills of exchange, which is an example of credit and economic exchange. Bills of exchange are basically like a check. It is a piece of paper you put your name on which says the money is coming. And they have faith that the money is coming because it came from someone else on this trade route that can get it to you. And they had banking houses which would turn this bill of credit and could use it to buy goods. This is basically the beginning of banking. The beginning of our checks. The beginning of our credit cards. That's all historically significant. And it begins because the Silk Road, for many of the same reasons why people like credit cards today. You don't want to have a huge amount of cash on you when you're going from place to place. Because there were robbers on the Silk Road that would rob you. So it was better to have like a banking house and a bill of exchange you could use. And people on the opposite ends of the road knew that people were good for the money. So the signature meant a lot on that bill of exchange. So this basically starts a credit system that begins with the Silk Road. Yeah, just as important as a camel saddle. Well, yeah, probably. Our next term is medium of exchange. Medium of exchange has to be something, if you're going to involve in trade, that both parties or many parties all find valuable. Today it'd be like dollars. I mean, everybody finds dollars valuable, so you can buy things in dollars. I don't go to, Tacos Pineda and trade my shoes for a burrito. Although, that burrito sounds good. I might give up my shoes for one. Anyway, what was I talking about again? Oh, yeah. So medium of exchange, something that everyone finds valuable. Sometimes this could be silk. Silk could be a medium of exchange, like money. Spices could work for that. Gems or metals. But then eventually they wanted to define currency that would be a money. China starts taking tokens of brass, which is a symbol which can be this brass is worth this much silk. And eventually people start putting amounts on it. So eventually China solves this problem by creating small pieces of paper with the pictures of a coin on it. They've just made money. So currency is basically money. Paper that people believe is valuable that they can use to buy goods back and forth. So medium exchange is basically saying instead of trading like you trade your silk for my spices, we can now have this paper that we trade back and forth. Basically it's money to buy goods. So damn, money was even basically created because of the trade that was going on in the post-classical era. Damn, that's even more important than a camel saddle. All right, let's move ahead. Grand Canal, we did that one already. Copy what you have. Geez, Mr. Wood, you better keep up on this, bud. Hanseatic League, we did that one too already. Why am I putting these on here twice? Well, just know I'm going to put them on a couple pieces of paper. If they're on here more than once, that means they're important. Cool. Are we done with this video already? We got our terms done? Yes, we are. So we can stop here and we can move on to the next video. I'll see you guys later, and I hope you're having a great time out of class, but you got homework because of evil teachers like me. Not like me, just me.